Representative, welcome back to the program here. Let's start with the Roberson case. What is next with this after the Supreme Court ruling the other day? Because it's been going on for weeks and weeks now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I really appreciate the Supreme Court going out of their way, in their opinion, to say that the committee that I serve on, that we were completely appropriate in what we did, that our subpoena was lawful, that it was valid. And my expectation now is that we can finally do what we've been trying to do, which is get Mr. Roberson's testimony in front of our committee. So hopefully we can get that done, and negotiations are ongoing. But hopefully we can hear from Mr. Roberson in front of our committee in the very near future. This has been an absolute go ahead, Jason.
And negotiations have been going on for quite a while. I mean, any idea, is this going to come to fruition?
That's my expectation. It's my hope, and I actually think so. I mean, I think that was clear in the Supreme Court's opinion, that the executive branch basically needs to accommodate our request because, again, our subpoena was lawful. Our subpoena was valid. There is now no question about this. And so my expectation is that we will be able to hear from Mr. Roberson in short order to get his perspective on the criminal justice system, which from my perspective has been an absolute unmitigated disaster. In this case, the criminal justice system has failed for over 20 years. This is a man who the state of Texas was hours away from executing, who, this is not even my opinion. I think this is a matter of fact. This man has never had due process. He has never had a fair trial, and we need to get him in front of our committee.
Give us an idea of what's happening in the background. Are there still talks going on with the TDCJ? Has everything stopped waiting on the Supreme Court to issue its ruling? What's happening right now in the background?
Well, there's been a lot of back and forth. I mean, this is it's novel territory. I mean, the subpoena we issued was unprecedented. It was historic. I firmly believe it was necessary. It was absolutely the right thing to do. But there are a lot of discussions about who and where and when and how and logistics. I mean, just given the novel nature of what we're dealing with here. But I fully expect, I mean, the most important thing is that we're able to get his testimony. And I do believe we're going to be able to do that in pretty short order.
The other thing the Supreme Court said in its ruling is that the DA, district attorney there in that county, can go ahead and ask for a new execution date as well. Do you expect that to happen soon?
She may. I hope she doesn't. We actually brought that particular district attorney from Anderson County to testify in front of our committee. And let me tell you, her testimony was an absolute embarrassment and disgrace, not just to Anderson County, but I think to the entire state of Texas. This district attorney, who is the official in the government in the state of Texas, who should be the authority on the case, when we asked her basic questions about the facts in Mr. Roberson's trial and in the appellate proceedings over the past 20 years, she did not know even the basic level of facts in this case. And if Mr. Roberson had been executed, that testimony, her performance in front of our committee, would be a stain, not just on the Texas House, but I think the entire Texas criminal justice system that we would have had to deal with for a generation. It was that bad. This district attorney did not know the basic facts of this case, and yet she's the person, despite not knowing anything about the case, who signed the document to request that the state put him to death. It's an outrage, total disgrace.
When is the earliest that a possible execution date could be scheduled if she asks the court and the court agrees?
I think there's a minimum 90-day window we would be looking at. So I think from whatever time she requests another execution date be set, we're looking at approximately 3 months of a window from that point in time.
You're still confident, though, that the committee will hear testimony from Roberson at some point?
Well, in light of what the Supreme Court just said, I don't know what the arguments would be to deny it. So yeah, my expectation is that we get his testimony. I mean, they were clear, multiple things. Our subpoena was valid, it was lawful, and explicitly we are authorized. It's within our purview to subpoena inmates in prison. So yeah, I expect we're going to hear from him, and we need to.
So does the committee now take this Supreme Court order and take it to TDCJ and say, listen, here's the Supreme Court. We want to sit, with this inmate and hear from him. What happens next?
Yeah, again, the discussions on the logistics are ongoing, as well as the details of the subpoena. But what we have wanted, what has been our position, is that we collect his testimony, we're able to receive his testimony, and we prefer to do it in person. I mean, this whole remote testimony thing was very novel pre-COVID. But in terms of our ability to assess his credibility and assess him as a witness, I think it's very important that we hear from him in person, especially given his challenges with technology. We're talking about somebody who's got a 9th grade education, who is autistic. And unlike the people that are watching this interview right now, who have probably done thousands of Zoom or Skype calls, this is somebody who has had almost no interaction with technology of any kind because he has been in, and think about this, he's been in solitary confinement for almost 23 hours a day for over 20 years at this point for a conviction of a crime that may never have occurred in the first place. I mean, that's the open question. People can't forget this. When people hear that he was a convicted murderer, that's true. A jury did convict him. But what they don't know, they assume that a jury heard all the evidence of guilt and weighed it against evidence of his innocence. But he's never had a fair trial because no jury has ever heard any arguments of his innocence because his public defender, court-appointed attorney 21 years ago just agreed with the prosecution. And so no jury has ever heard any arguments of his innocence. It's an absolute miscarriage of justice.
You know, a number of Texans, including some of your colleagues, have said that, listen, that the system worked the way it should have. What do you say to them?
I say that history in time, it will be very clear who was on the right side of history and who has been championing and continues to champion the death of a potentially innocent person, the execution of a potentially innocent person who's never had fair trial and never has had due process. And let me be really clear about this too. I will help make it clear who was on the right side of history and who championed the execution of a potentially innocent person.
I'm curious, also, Representative, a Dallas County man was exonerated
Yep.
for a very similar charge. Andrew Rourke recently. He's now a free man. Roberson's about to be executed, like could be here soon. What's the difference in their cases? Because they both involve shaken baby
Yeah.
syndrome.
We have the government talking out of both sides of its mouth, and we have officials in the executive branch being profoundly dishonest in the way they're characterizing this case here. In the case of Robert Rourke, convicted on shaken baby syndrome, the Court of Criminal Appeals basically said, yeah, convictions on shaken baby syndrome are very suspect because the science has evolved so much from what we thought 20 years ago about it. And so he's been now basically completely exonerated in the Rourke case. But in Roberson's case, which is the exact same prosecution, literally with the exact same medical witnesses, Dr. Squires, saying the same things in both trials to both juries, one man is now being exonerated and another is about to be executed. And we have dishonest statements coming out from the executive branch saying that Mr. Roberson wasn't convicted of shaken baby syndrome. He was convicted of, quote, this is what they're saying, and it's outrageous. He was convicted of beating his daughter to death. That is a lie. We had a juror come in and testify to our committee that she never convicted Mr. Roberson of beating anybody. And in fact, none of the physical evidence supports the contention that this little girl was beat in any way. She had zero serious bruises. She had zero lacerations. She didn't have so much as a hairline fracture anywhere on her body. The entire case was that she was shaken to death, and they had to theorize that because there was no direct physical evidence of abuse of any kind. All the state ever established, to my satisfaction, was that this little girl probably stopped breathing at some point during the night, and her father was in the house when it happened. They had to make it depend on this theory, the shaken baby hypothesis, and then charged him with murder and sentenced him to death. This is an absolute miscarriage of justice, and I am shocked and I am dismayed at the dishonest statements being made now to defend the execution of somebody who's never had a fair trial.
Let's talk politics for a moment here. Do you think there are finally enough votes to pass school choice in the legislature?
I sure hope so. Look, I'm probably
No one seems 100% on this. Everyone I'm talking to.
They shouldn't. People who are saying that this is a done deal are either ignorant or they're lying to you. I'm probably the loudest and most vocal supporter of school choice in the Texas House of Representatives. And I worked very hard through the primary season, along with Governor Abbott and Ted Cruz and Ken Paxton, to primary, and President Trump, to primary my Republican colleagues who opposed parental freedom and school choice. We defeated many of them. So we have more votes than we ever have in the history of Texas in the House to support school choice. But the devil's in the details. The bills need to be a lot better than they were last session. They were not universal. They were financially irresponsible and reckless. We need to have a bill that's done right. Look, over 34 other states have already empowered their parents with some kind of school choice. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We need to learn from the successes of other states. We need to pass a school choice program that is truly universal. And by that, I mean every family that wants an education savings account to send their kids to the school of their choosing should get one. And it needs to be free of liberal poison pills, like, putting government mandated testing on homeschool families or in private school. I mean, these are the kind of outrageous provisions that were slipped into many of the bills last session.
Sure.
So it's got to be the right bill, because I'll be really clear about this. A bad bill is worse than no bill.
I want to ask about the race to become Speaker of the House of Representatives. Does Dade Phelan have enough votes, do you think, right now to get reelected?
We're going to find out really soon. There's a good chance that he does, because he's got 4 years of documented history going to the Democrats in the Texas House to get support. And we've got high 80s Republicans, low 60s of Democrats. The fact that he has proven a willingness to go to the Democrats to empower them in exchange for his support means that, yeah, there's a very real chance. When he says he has the votes, when Governor Perry says that he's got the votes to stay Speaker, I think it would be foolish to discount that possibility. But what would also be equally foolish and dishonest is to say that we do not need major substantive and structural reforms in the Texas House. I worked in the swamp of Washington, D.C. under President Trump, and let me tell you, I've seen a lot of swampy behavior. But I've never seen anything as swampy as Republicans running in a primary, promising their voters, saying, vote for me and I'll stand up to the radical leftists that threaten liberty for the next generation. And then as soon as they get elected, vote to empower those very same leftists. And that's what's been going on in the Texas House for almost 2 decades. The voters of Texas were clear. They want Republicans in leadership. They deserve Republican leadership. They have not had that for the last 4 years. And we need to change that. We need to make the Texas House Republican again and finally pass Republican priorities like school choice. So I'm cautiously optimistic and doing everything I can to make that happen over the next few months as we prepare to gavel in January.
Let's talk about something that let's talk about something the UT system did the other day. It's offering free tuition to any students whose families make less than $100,000. You take issue with that. Tell us why.
Absolutely. This is an absolutely outrageous abuse of power. If the state of Texas is going to become more socialist than California, which is what we're doing here, California offers, quote, free college, which, by the way, there is nothing free. Anyone who's taken a basic economics course, nothing's free. But California offers free college for those making up to $80,000 a year. That's outrageous enough. Well, Texas, we are now more socialist than California, offering, quote, free college to people in families of $100,000 a year. And to do what? They're going to give free college if you make $100,000 a year to go and study LGBTQ sexuality studies. This is outrageous. Public higher education in Texas is off the rails. The inmates are running the asylum. Let me tell you what this is. This, if you care about the protection of separation of powers as I do, this is an abuse of power because the legislature never voted on this. Rogue, unelected executive branch bureaucrats on their own decided to make Texas more socialist than California. There's got to be consequences for this. Budgets need to be cut. People need to be fired. And I will be working every day to bring accountability for this type of rogue behavior next session.
Does the legislature have recourse on this? Is it cutting the budget? Is that what it is?
Let me be really clear. It is the legislature, and it is only the legislature that gets to authorize and appropriate the use of my constituents. By the way, constituents who are being taxed out of their homes. Texas is not the low tax state everyone believes we are. I've got constituents being taxed out of their houses every day. They do not want to be funding liberal propaganda. Texas, our tax dollars, they are for education. They are not for liberal indoctrination. So the legislature absolutely has the prerogative to rein this in. And let me tell you something else I just announced this week on Twitter in the light of University of Texas, even before they did this, abusing tax dollars to fund left-wing liberal leftist propaganda like LGBTQ sexuality studies. Any university in the state of Texas that continues to allow taxpayer-funded left-wing propaganda on their campus, I'm going to be filing legislation to zero the budgets for the office of any university of president who allows that type of abuse of tax dollars to happen on their campus. And look, if the University of Texas has got so much money, they can offer free college for LGBTQ studies in Texas. And guess what? I think that's their way of telling the legislature, we don't need any more of your money. So as far as I'm concerned, duly noted. I don't think the University of Texas needs a penny more of tax dollars if they're going to be pushing this socialist agenda here in the great state of Texas.
And just so I'm clear, if a Texas university, a public university, has LGBTQ studies, you're going to offer legislation that would zero out their budgets?
100%. If they have an LGBTQ minor, that is an abuse of taxpayer funding, never authorized by the legislature. And as far as I'm concerned, there have got to be consequences. The Texas legislature cannot be fearful of using the power of the purse to protect taxpayers hard-earned money. And if you've got an LGBTQ minor on your campus, I want the Office of the President's budget to be zeroed out.
Representative, we appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
You bet. Always great to talk to you, Jason.